Hi everyone and welcome to our background screencast on the Homeric hymns, which I think will provide some valuable information to help in your understanding of the hymn to Demeter, which is our reading for next week. So first off, the Homeric hymns are a collection of 34 poems that were written in praise to honor the Greek gods and goddesses we've been talking about the last couple of weeks. They were written around 700 to 500 BCE. Some were probably a little bit more recent, around 300 to 200 BCE, and we've dated these by looking at their reference in other poems where we know the dates for sure, and also looking at where they were discovered in which temples. They were written in dactylic hexameter, which are basically 6 metrical units, with each unit containing 3 beats, like dum, da, da. Now, you don't need to understand necessarily how to analyze the rhythm of these poems, but just know that they were spoken, or they were written rather, to be spoken out loud, and they had a beat to it, similar to some of the rap music that you might listen to today. And lastly, because of the dialect and style and also time that they're written in, the poems were originally attributed to Homer, because they're in the same style as the Iliad and the Odyssey. Now, subsequent scholars have debunked that, and they think that the poems were actually composed by some unknown poet, but the name stuck, and so we call these poems the Homeric hymns, even though they didn't have anything to do with Homer. Now, what were they like? Well, on the right-hand side, you see a picture of the goddess Aphrodite and the mortal Anchises. One of the hymns depicts the relationship between Aphrodite, who fell head over heels in love with this mortal. Their child, Aeneas, actually went on to become a very important figure in Roman mythology. Now, the hymns were poems that celebrated the attributes of a god or goddess. You see, for instance, a picture of Apollo slaying the python, and the hymn to Apollo gives praise to him for his prowess in battle and for slaying this dragon monster. They were sung or chanted by Greek solo singers known as auros, and they were spoken by bards who traveled from place to place, entertainers at religious ceremonies, competitions, festivals, symposia. So basically, you can imagine almost like a rap-off, where 2 poets would get up, they would give their poem, and then the best poet would earn a prize. Here's an example of one of the hymns, an excerpt. It was 2, and I want you to guess who this is. You see a little picture there, and you might read the caption, but pretend you don't know that. And the poet would say, "A palace blank, guardian of the city, I begin to sing. Dread is she, and with Ares she loves deeds of war, the sack of cities, and the shouting and the battle. It is she who saves the people as they go out to war and come back. Hail, goddess, and give us good fortune with happiness." Well, you probably guessed that this is a hymn to the goddess Athena, and it gives you a sense of how the poet would praise this particular goddess and ask for the goddess to act on his or his behalf. Now, you'll notice that in this English translation, we don't have the poetry preserved, but it gives you a sense of what it's like. Here's one more. See if you can guess who this goddess is. To blank. I begin to sing of rich-haired blank, awful goddess of her and of her daughter, lovely Persephone. Hail, goddess, keep this city safe and govern my song. Well, you probably guessed that this is a hymn to Demeter, one of several hymns to Demeter that are in the collection of Homeric hymns. And the clue is her daughter Persephone. Now, in the longest poems, those to Apollo, Aphrodite, and Demeter, they are going to be about power. Power relationships and power struggles between some of the gods and goddesses, and also humans and the gods. So pay attention to that in the hymn to Demeter, which we're going to read. In this painting, which depicts the rape of Persephone, or Hades stealing or kidnapping Persephone from the natural world, you get a sense of what the plot of the story you're going to read is all about. So here last are some key things that will help you when you read the story. The hymn to Demeter is depicted in this very famous statue by Bernini called The Rape of Proserpina around 1621. And you notice Hades is grabbing her. Persephone definitely looks like she doesn't want to go along. And you see Cerberus on the bottom right. Now in the story, you're going to see some epithets identifying characteristics of certain characters. I wanted to go over them really quickly so you have a sense of who they represent. When you read "She of the Lovely Ankles," that refers to Demeter. When you read "The Wine Dark Sea," that's a reference just to the ocean. Very famous Homeric phrase too, actually. When they refer to Hades and Zeus, you're going to hear "Son of Kronos with many names," "He who receives many," or "Pluton, the giver of wealth." And Zeus, as we know, as the son of Kronos, will be referred to by that epithet as well. Lastly, you'll meet Hecate. She's a goddess of crossroads and witchcraft. Helios, the Titan god of the sun, the brilliant son of Hyperion. Remember them? They played in the Circe story. And also Demeter's nickname, Deo. So you'll come across references to this goddess by that name as well. As you read, I want you to look for what values or universal truths does the text suggest for classical society and also for us today. As you read, annotate anything that gives us a sense of a message about being human, what you think the story reflects about that. An example might be mothers love their daughters and will do anything to protect them. There's much more in this myth. Enjoy!